Ladies and gentlemen, WWE has dropped a major announcement. Nobody really saw this one coming. We got to talk about that. Plus, AEW has also launched a major announcement, something that nobody really saw coming, but I think it's actually a really good sign for AEW. And yes, we are going to talk about those WWE cuts. There are some WWE cuts that we got to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Ango Show. And if you guys don't click subscribe, you're going to miss out on everything that happens in pro wrestling. So make sure you click subscribe today. Okay, first things first, I want to talk about this AEW 2300 Arena, a new residency that AEW will be doing for multiple dates. They're going to be doing Dynamite, Collision, Dynamite, Death Before Dishonor, AEW Collision, Dynamite, and then another episode of AEW Collision, and it's all going to be taking place at the AEW's newest playground, which is the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. We recently saw NXT there. It is a very small venue, but of course it is historically known. It's very, very good for a pro wrestling venue. The 2300 Arena obviously having that history with ECW, and then we saw NXT embrace ECW. It just goes to show you that this is a good move. Philadelphia, hardcore audience, largely going to be successful. Yes, this is another residency, and I think this is a good thing. We saw them do the residency in Texas, which I think when you look at what they did in Texas by having multiple shows at the same venue, it was relatively nice to see. I think for AEW, this is also, their tickets are a little bit less expensive. They're not having this massive expectation that Dynamite and Collision are going to have to sell 10, 15,000 tickets, because that's not what the setup stands for. I think it's a great move. Now, the real question here, being that they're doing the 2300 Arena, will we see AEW do the same thing that WWE did, in which they show some sort of tribute to ECW? And I think that's the real question. I think for ECW, it's definitely a nostalgia thing. And of course, nostalgia, in my opinion, works. I think this is one of those situations where nostalgia will probably play a role into what AEW does. I think it would be a smart idea for them to do so. I think for AEW in this particular case, if they're able to be successful at the 2300 Arena, you may see them follow this trend, right? We saw them do it with the esports arena before. Now they're doing it with the 2300 Arena. I don't think it's a bad idea to bring multiple events to a single venue for multiple dates. I mean, this is several dates. And on top of that, you get the Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view, which is a Ring of Honor show. I think that's good. I think it's a cool thing. I think it works out really well in their favor. Hopefully it works. And that brings us to the WWE cuts. Ladies and gentlemen, WWE has cut over 11 to 12 people internally from the company. We don't really know all of the... We don't know all of the names, of course. PWInsider.com has reported that Christine Lubrano is the Senior Vice President of Creative Writing Operations, and she was one of the departures in the company. Also, Ryan Paipola, who you guys may have seen on The Bump, is no longer with the company. This is basically WWE making cuts, internally in the company. Some people are speculating that this is going to lead to releases within the roster. But I want to kind of explain as to why this is happening. One, I think TKO is very much in the business of looking at the bottom dollar, right? The bottom line. And that's something that they're going to continue doing because TKO is trying to run a business. I think secondly, you need to look at the business as a whole. TKO now is introducing a boxing company. They just got the professional bull riders. They have UFC. They have WWE. They don't need a lot of people across multiple positions because you can share tasks between all the companies. Now, Ryan Paipola, for example, was an on-air talent for WWE in terms of media content, web content, and The Bump. But WWE kind of moved away from that stuff, right? So I think what ends up happening here is WWE and TKO are looking at the bottom dollar of everything and then saying, do we really need this? And I don't think, for the most part, many positions in a company are actually needed. I know sometimes that seems controversial, but if you look at a lot of large corporations, sometimes there's people in roles that just simply don't really fit the company's future vision. I'm not defending WWE. I don't like it anytime somebody loses their job, but having 12 releases here from internally, there's probably a good reason for that, not just the aspect of money. I think money plays probably the most important aspect to TKO, but I do think there's other things there, especially with them launching a boxing promotion, with them doing, professional bull riders and all, now they have On Location. I think WWE, UFC, all of these companies are going to have a lot of synchronization, which I think would be a fair assessment. So personally speaking, it sucks. I think it sucks anytime people lose their jobs. Christine Lubrano being an SVP for the company is definitely it's an interesting change, but the business is constantly evolving all the time. And then that's where you have to kind of look at it and say, okay, change is needed. Doesn't mean it's justifiable. All right, guys, we got to talk about this. WWE Crown Jewel Perth has been officially revealed. So it's not Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. They're bringing the Crown Jewel brand to Perth, Australia, which is Western Australia. And the company will also be doing Raw and SmackDown from the RAC Arena. They made this announcement. Basically, it's going to be taking place October 10th, 11th, and then October 13th, they'll do Raw. So Friday, you get SmackDown. Crown Jewel Perth will be on the 11th, and then on Monday, you get Raw, which will be interesting because SmackDown's on USA Network, which means you'll probably get the tape delay. And then with Raw being on Netflix, more than likely, I'm assuming at this point, you will get Raw whenever it airs from Australia. That's my assumption. TKO is doing this in partnership with the Western Australian government. So Tourism Western Australia announced that they're working with WWE to bring these events to the country, which is obviously a really big deal. And what's even crazier is Crown Jewel will have this event. We will see the champion versus champion thing. So last year we saw with Liv Morgan, we saw with Cody Rhodes, right, where they win the Crown Jewel championship. Champion versus champion will be on this show. And it's going to be taking place in Australia, which is interesting because we thought that was a thing for Saudi Arabia. They are bringing that back this time in Australia. So personally speaking, I think this is a good thing. Personally, I genuinely believe this is a good thing. Cool to see them doing more and more international events. I think Crown Jewel will be great. Australia, great crowd. I believe this is also, somebody had pointed out that it was also on Rhea Ripley's birthday. Rhea Ripley coming from Australia. This is going to be in October. I can imagine some big things there. Hopefully by that point in time, Bronson Reed is back in the company too, which he's been from Australia. He was set for a major push. There's a lot to be excited about here. I think this is a massive deal. What do you guys think? Let me know down below.